At least you'll get to drink some beer. We all get to drink some beer. It'll be good. So my name is James. My wife over there is Lauren. Our little baby is Murray. Hold him up. Yeah, there's Murray. Look at those thighs. Look at those thighs. He's 11 months old. He just took his first steps 2 days ago. So Lauren and I are screwed. Yeah, no, nothing. Yeah, he'll be brewing it before too long, I hope. So yeah, I guess a little bit about us. We are both kind of local St. Louisans. We grew up in Alton, Illinois. Moved to St. Louis for a while to finish up college. I started home brewing then, so that's kind of how I got my start in the science of it. I always loved beer. Even when I was like a kid, my dad would let me sip his Bud Light when I was like 10, and I thought it tasted great back then. And times changed. I kind of started getting into craft beer when I was about 18 or 19. I had my beard in about the current state it's in now, so I didn't really get carded anywhere. Bad. So so I started drinking a lot of craft beer, kind of get into it, making my own beer at home. I just fell in love with the science of it. Obviously the flavor, the taste, everything is really cool. The history behind it is fascinating. But it was kind of, to me, it was the science. It was learning something new every time you made beer, every time you tasted beer, trying to learn and stay active with it. That was really the most attractive part to me. The alcohol helps, though. That helps too. So when Lauren and I were kind of finishing up college, I started bartending at Urban Chestnut Brewery, pretty much like the week they opened. So I bartended there for, a couple years, and then moved my way into the brewery. I went through the American Brewers Guild program out of Vermont. My bachelor's degree from UMSL was in sociology, so that got me the bartending job. And then I decided late in my college career that I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with sociology. I don't really want to keep going to school forever. So I knew I loved brewing and decided to enroll in the Brewers Guild program. It's a program based out of Vermont. It's online course. I think it was 25, 26 weeks, which was great. Meant I got to keep my day job. I got to keep working. I didn't have to move anywhere and pay a whole lot of money to do it. But so basically that job kind of got my foot in the door at Urban Chestnut. I worked in the brewery there for a year and a half, 2 years, something like that, and then decided I wanted to kind of get out and do my own thing. Excuse me. My wife Lauren at the time was the general manager and helping to start up the Grove location, which she managed for several months before leaving to help open up Old Bakery. So when we were first starting our planning of opening our brewery, we were living in Lindenwood Park. We loved it down there. We were looking at a handful of buildings in South St. Louis. We wanted to just open up kind of a little brew pub, and then my dad brought us to this building up in Alton that's 20,000 square feet. And he's like, hey, isn't this great? And we got all this room, and we were like, yeah, you know what, this is great. So we kind of went forth with that, developed like kind of tailor, kind of fit our plan to the building, and went from there and started getting some investment money. The name Old Bakery comes from the fact that the building is an old bakery. It was originally built in the late 1800s, is as exact as we've been able to gather. And it was originally home to the Alton Baking and Catering Company, obviously long gone. Then there was Knoll's Bakery. They also made ice cream there. And then I think in about the 30s, Colonial Bread, which is still in existence. It's essentially like Wonder Bread, same kind of stuff. Colonial Bread was made there from, I think, the 30s till the early to mid 80s, at which point it was pretty much abandoned. All the equipment was gone when we got there, but the guy who owned the building was a repo man, so he stored people's shit in there. And then he also had like a forklift repair company or something like that, something really boring. So the locals were happy when a brewery was going to open up there and not a forklift repair company. So yeah, things have been going great. We are brewing on a 15-barrel brew house, so that's about 30 half barrels at a time, about 500 gallons at a time. We currently have a couple of 15-barrel fermenters, a couple of 30-barrel fermenters, and then two 30-barrel bright tanks. The brewery space itself is about 10,000 square feet. So what I always would kind of tell people is, general rule of thumb in the industry is for every square foot you have in production space, you could probably knock out about 1 barrel of in annual production. So 10,000 barrels per year is approximately what we could get to someday, you know, and max out that facility. This year we're on pace to do about probably, I think about 1,500? Really? Man, this summer has been a blur. I don't know. I don't know which way is up anymore. But yeah, so about 1,500 barrels. Last year I think we did about 7,500, or I'm sorry, 750. We didn't regress. But yeah, we did 750 last year. We're going to do about 1,500 this year, so about, you know, doubling production. And we're hoping to do about the same next year, you know, get up to 3,000 barrels. We'll see if we can make that work. We just started canning our beer back in March, I believe. There's no canning line at the brewery, though. We are taking advantage of a mobile canning company from Chicago. They come down about every 3 or 4 weeks, and basically it's a pretty cool setup. They have a U-Haul truck. The canning line breaks down. They have a very particular way that everything fits into the U-Haul truck. They got a lift gate, so they back in, they unload it. It takes about an hour to unload everything and set it up, and then we're flowing beer through. And then it's about the same. It takes them about an hour to break it down and get out the door. But right now, those guys, I think, last time I checked in with them, I think they had 30-something clients throughout the Midwest, as far north as the Twin Cities, and we're the most southern brewery that they come to. But a lot in like the Madison and Milwaukee area, and then obviously a lot in Chicagoland. But it's a pretty interesting setup. It means we don't have to take on a whole lot of debt right out of the gate in order to get some canned product out. But obviously, long term, we'll need to get our own canning line. Their canning line does about 1 case a minute, so it's a pretty nice quick line. Takes myself and one other guy to pack that for about 10 hours every shift. It gets to be pretty mind-numbing. But anyway, so I suppose that's about it. We'll start tasting some beers here in a little bit. So when everyone gets their beer, I'll start talking. Does anybody have any questions or anything like that?
What percentage of the beer that you produce do you sell on-site, on-premise versus?
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't looked at that number in a long time. Yeah. If I had to guess, I would say we're closing in on 50-50. We're probably selling more like maybe 60% on premise and 40% out the door. All right, now I got my beer. All right, so now we can talk about the beer. So this one is our citrus wheat. This is pretty much becoming our flagship beer. It's by far our biggest seller. We've already had to brew about, I think, 18 batches of this year. Everything else, we haven't even had to do 10 yet, I believe. But so this one, it's kind of a marriage between a Belgian wit beer and an American style wheat. So it's got some spices that you'd find in a wit beer. It's got orange peel, coriander. Those are the two most common spices in a Belgian wit beer. Chamomile is also in there. That is less commonly used in wit beer, but there are some that feature chamomile, which I really like in this beer, the chamomile. But then we throw in a fair bit of lemon peel, and that's what I get more so than the orange or the coriander. I get a lot of lemon and then a little bit of chamomile in the finish. Especially as the beer ages, you start to get more of the chamomile and a little bit less of the lemon. Interesting. So I guess one thing I could say about the brewery before I kind of get too much into the beer is that there's kind of two things that it's kind of our mission, I suppose. As a brewery, it kind of defines us a little bit. One of which is we are proud to be one of only 30 breweries in the entire country to be certified organic. And right now we're doing all of our beers certified organic. in order to just produce one organic beer, like for example, Lakefront Brewing up in Milwaukee has a certified organic ESB. They have to get the entire brewery certified just to produce that one beer. So we're doing all of them organic right now, which is relatively easy. The only hard part is sourcing hops. I think before 2012 or 2013, organic beer didn't have to use organic hops. So you could have just, organic malt, raw grains or whatever, organic spices, but the hops didn't have to be organic. But then that law changed. So now it all has to be organic. Anything agricultural going into it has to be certified organic. So the the organic hop growing industry is really young, really small. So as opposed to lots of other breweries that are basically contacting big hop brokers, big like brewery supply groups, stuff like that, to get their hops, I'm contacting individual growers in lots of cases, which is great to kind of cultivate the relationships with them, but it also it's quite a bit more challenging to find them, and a lot of the guys are kind of older, and one guy faxes me stuff. He tries to fax me stuff. I don't know. It's like I barely even know what that is. The other thing that we're doing that I really take a lot of pride in personally as well is all of our malt, all of our raw grains, all of our hops are American grown and produced. A lot of breweries import their ingredients, and I think that's kind of a shame. When local brewers talk about support your local beer, support your local brewers. I think if you're making local beer with German ingredients, I don't know how local that beer really is, but that's just my opinion. So we brew everything. I'm also of the opinion that you may as well kind of work with what you've got locally. That's what people had to do 100, 200 years ago. When brewers came here from the old world in Germany, they had to brew with what they had, which is why there's so much corn in light lager these days. But so for example, we actually the wheat, not in this current citrus wheat, but I'm actually working on a relationship with a farmer up near Champaign, Illinois, who's growing certified organic wheat, rye, oats, and barley. Maybe not the rye, but at least the oats and barley. So we're going to start getting all of our raw wheat that we use in the citrus wheat directly from them. So Illinois certified organic wheat, from a guy just 2.5 hours north of the brewery. So that'll be really cool. I look forward to that. At a good price too, no doubt. Yeah. So back to the beer. We throw about 40% raw flaked wheat into this brew. So that gives it the cloudy appearance. It's unfiltered. None of our beers are filtered. We use some fining agents to clarify the beer, and then just time. Let the beer clear up naturally. Eventually we'll have to either get a filter or centrifuge or something like that, but we'll get there when we get there. So this beer, it's got a nice kind of lemony character on the nose. You get a little bit of orange, a little coriander. I kind of get the chamomile more on the palate. It's almost like a nice tea flavor. Got a question? Okay, so he was asking about what yeast we use to ferment citrus wheat. If anybody didn't hear him, we use an American ale strain. It's basically the Chico strain. It's probably the most common yeast strain used in craft brewing. It's from Sierra Nevada, so they're located in Chico, California, so it's called the Chico strain. Super versatile ale yeast, very clean, very crisp. You can ferment a wide range of ales, and even some guys will do some like pseudo, faux lagers with this yeast. It ferments down to about 58 degrees Fahrenheit and upwards of like 74. We normally ferment at 68 on this one, but it's kind of nice in that it doesn't really accentuate hop character or malt character. It just kind of stays very neutral and lets everything else shine. It's also kind of a trooper, and it stores really easily, so we can harvest a keg of yeast from a tank and throw it into the cooler for 2 or 3 weeks and bring it back out and brew with it, and we haven't killed too many cells in the process. So some yeast, the day that fermentation's done, it just dies. English yeasts in particular, some of them are really finicky to work with. So it's nice to have one yeast in-house that's kind of our workhorse that we can rely on, and we know it's going to be around for a while. I believe currently in-house we're on our, I think about probably our 40th generation of that yeast that we bought a culture in, brew it up, harvest yeast from one. Every time you harvest yeast from a tank of beer, that's one generation. So we've reused that yeast about 40 times essentially. Mouth's getting dry up here. So I think this beer is kind of quintessential summer beer. Just enough acidity from the lemon peel and the orange peel, and the yeast has a little bit of an acidic nature that, it's crisp, it's refreshing, very easygoing, very mellow. You're going to hear me say that a lot about our beers tonight. If there's one thing, like as a whole in our beer portfolio that I kind of go for as a brewer, I want them to all be easygoing, mellow. I want our IPA to be, fairly bitter like an IPA should be, but I don't want it to absolutely destroy your palate. I don't want to melt your face off. With our porter, a lot of people assume a dark beer is going to be super high alcohol, but ours is only 5.5% thereabouts. So we really focus on, session beers, drinkability, not trying to freak anybody out with anything in particular. Yeah, what's up? Oh, the IBUs on the Citrus Wheat, 20, yeah, thereabouts. It typically comes in around 4.5 to 4.7% alcohol, and then 20 IBUs. I think, yeah, I've never had the IBU tested, but my calculations are like 18 to 20, somewhere around. Yeah, right. Good? All right. Well, you can find this one around town. If odds are, if our beer is at a bar, if it's at a liquor store or a grocery store, you're going to be able to find this one. We sell a lot of this beer right now, and hopefully we can keep that up. Yeah, what's up? We've broken into some grocery stores. We kind of, when we launched in St. Louis, we were mainly focused on some like specialty liquor stores like St. Louis Hop Shop, down on Cherokee, Craft Beer Cellar, places like that. But now we've gotten into Whole Foods, select a number of Schnucks, no Deerbergs yet on this side of the river. But yeah, Whole Foods is killing it for us. Oh, awesome. I guess I got to catch up. I had my beer from earlier, too. But yeah, with summer lasting into near October now, our season for summer beers is just growing. All right. So now we've all got the IPA. So this one is named North End IPA. Alton is right on top of the St. Louis metro area, right on the north side, North End. I didn't want to call it North Side IPA because that's got a whole other connotation. So North End IPA is where it's at for us. So this beer, I want to say it's 5.7, 5.6% alcohol. We brew it to about 50 IBU. So for an IPA, it's not going to be as bitter as a lot of IPAs out there, but it's going to have a nice firm bitterness, on the end of on the finish. It's kind of crisp. The nose is pretty much dominated by Citra. We dry hop every tank of this, every 15-barrel brew, with 7.5 pounds of Citra, 5 pounds of Cascade, and 5 pounds of Crystal. So Cascade is kind of the classic quintessential craft beer hop. Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, that's all Cascade on the finish. So that brings some sweetness, but a big like grapefruit character. Citra is a relatively newer variety of hop, but it's really popular these days, getting very hard to find. But it kind of brings, and to me, I get a lot of like kind of some tropical fruit, but then like tangerine, like kind of sweet, like almost like clementine character, and then a little bit of like kind of floral character. Crystal excuse me, is kind of the oddball hop for an IPA. You don't see Crystal in a whole lot of IPAs. It is actually, it's an American variety of hop, but it's derived from Hallertauer hops from Germany. So there was three the sister hops, Crystal, Mount Hood, and Liberty hops. They're all derived from Hallertau. They all have kind of a really nice floral kind of herbal character. Crystal, in my opinion, is kind of the most pungent, very floral. It's got a little bit of a fruitiness to it, like kind of a zesty character. So the Crystal kind of brings that to the table. So it's kind of a nice, in my opinion, the aroma is kind of a nice balance of, citrus, some tropical fruit, and then a little bit of floral character to kind of balance it out. The grain bill is really simple on this beer. Excuse me, it's mostly just brewer's malt, just pale brewer's malt, a little bit of raw wheat, and then just a hint of black malt for color. In my IPAs, I like to keep the malt. Really, I like to use the grain bill just as a source of sugar for alcohol and carbon dioxide. I don't really want a whole lot of flavor from the malt in my IPA. It's kind of obscuring the hops. I kind of want it to be. It's all about showcasing the hops. So that's why we kind of kept the grain bill really simple. Once again, in this beer, it's that American ale yeast. It's very straightforward, very clean, very straightforward. I suppose that's probably it on that one. Does anybody have any questions or anything? No? Yeah, the citrus wheat was also the American ale. What we're tasting tonight, this one is American ale. The citrus wheat was the American ale. The hibiscus tart later is the American ale yeast. And I believe the coffee red ale, that might have been the English ale yeast. And the porter is the English ale yeast as well. Black malt. Yeah. And we get all of our malts from Breese Malting up in Wisconsin. If any of you guys are home brewers, I'm sure you've seen and probably brewed with Breese malt. They're located about halfway between Milwaukee and Green Bay, so it's like a 7-hour drive up there. But really, really high quality, consistent malt. By malt house standards, they're very small. The global malting industry is huge, and a lot of the big breweries own their own malt houses. So it's dominated by Cargill and companies like that. So Breese is very small, but their minimum batch size is 60,000 pounds, which is a lot. Right now, that's in a typical brew for us, we use about 1,000 pounds. So that's not quite a year's worth of malt in a single run, but it's damn close. we'll probably use, I guess we'll probably use about 100,000 pounds of malt this year. But yeah, it's a fair bit. We get it all in 50-pound sacks, and then have to dump it into a mill that's this high. So you get strong working in a brewery. I don't look like it, but you get strong working in a brewery. 50-pound bags of malt, 160-pound half barrels that you got to stack. It'll break your back. Exactly. I know. But there's room in there. Yeah. I've been talking about that for years. Get some other people to come in here and pay me to come move my kegs around. Just throw a treadmill in the corner and call it a day. Yeah. There you go. That's a good idea. I like it. What do you guys think of the IPA? Do you like it? Got a little bit of a kind of a peppery quality on the nose right now. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to assume that that's probably the crystal hops being a little bit spicy. Anybody else get some flavors in here that I didn't touch on? Anything else popping out at you? Don't say butt. Don't say it tastes like butt. You can say but if you want.
How many people are having the IPA for the first time? First timers? Most of the class? By far? Yeah? Okay.
All right. All right. So now we're doing the porter. All right. So this beer was around when we opened. We opened over a year and a half ago, but this was one of the beers that we launched with, and really hit the ground running with this one. It was mellow enough and kind of easy, accessible enough for people who weren't really into beer to dig it. But then also it was kind of complex enough and like on point enough to style for beer nerds and beer snobs to get behind it. Actually, the farmer who picks up our spent grain, he actually takes our spent grain out to his farm in Fosterburg. And a cool story with that is he is selling the cows to a local butcher shop that actually has their storefront in our parking lot. So there's kind of a nice little circle of life, education and opportunity there. And we're actually serving the spent grain. So the Old Bakery spent grain burgers are on our menu. So I don't know that the spent grain adds anything to the flavor of the meat, but when that stuff rots, oh man, it stinks. Oh man. Oh, Hanson? Yeah. Yep. It's good stuff. Really good. Yeah. No, it's seriously very, very good. Yeah. 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 Yeah, they've got some we don't have our golden oat beer for sampling tonight, but we that's a beer we do. It's like a golden ale. We brew with some flaked oats to kind of add some creaminess. Finish off with some of those crystal hops for a nice like floral character. But they actually make bratwurst with the golden oat in it. Those are they can't keep up with demand on those. Yeah, no, they are. Yeah. They do pretty well. I think it's on this board. Yeah, so this porter, I guess what I was relating about the farmer was that he's he's a country boy, you know what I mean? He's a Bud Light guy, but when he first started coming to get our spent grain and he started coming in and wanting to support us, he was like, damn, man, that porter, it's like, that's real good. That's an exaggeration. He doesn't. I don't know if he actually sounds like that. I think he has an MBA. Actually, I shouldn't make too much fun of him. He's more educated than I am. But but anyway, so the porter, we kind of hit the ground running with this one. It is probably our most complex grain bill. We got Munich malt, brewer's malt, flaked oats, roasted barley, chocolate malt, and black malt all in there. You normally don't see a whole lot of roasted barley in like really old school porters from England. It's really more about the chocolate malt, but Breese's roasted barley in particular is a very light roasted barley. So it to me, I don't get a whole lot of coffee flavor out of this. I get more of like really dark, bittersweet chocolate, like baker's chocolate, which that roasted barley kind of adds to that, along with the chocolate malt. The black malt is really just there for like a little bit more color, if anything. The Munich malt adds a whole lot of nuttiness. If any of you guys are homebrewers, the Munich malt, and I'll say the Breese Munich malt, the Bonelander Munich malt is probably my favorite malt to brew with. It's really easy to work with, and then it's just got this really nice like bready, like almost like toasty kind of bread crust, super deep maltiness. A little bit, yeah, sure. Yeah. So this one we fermented out with our house English ale strain. We actually kind of got hooked up when we first opened up. We had some yeast on hand that we were ready to brew with our American ale yeast, and my buddy Dylan, who's the brewer over at Civil Life, who I don't know, you guys have probably done beer school with Dylan, right? He just texted me and said, "Hey," I was like, "I know you're about to get going. You need any yeast or anything like that?" So I was planning on bringing this yeast in. He just happened to have it, so he threw me a keg of it, and we started going. It's a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty unique thing to be in an industry where, we don't just like kick our competitors to the curb. We'll actually like help them out, and the whole idea is to try to, if everyone's making good beer, then we are attracting more people to drink good beer, and thus creating more customers for ourselves. You know, what at the craft brewers conference, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, the president of the Craft Brewers Guild, or the Craft Brewers Association or whatever, got up and started kind of ranting about all the new breweries that were coming online, all the new breweries that were opening up all over the country. And right now there's like 2 opening up every day. And basically he ranted and ranted and ranted, and basically just summed it up and said, don't fuck it up. Don't fuck this up for us. So it was like, you new guys, like we've put in a lot of years, a lot of effort to make our beer, to get our beer to where it is with the quality, and marketing. So don't you? He's like, don't you damn kids come and kill this for us. So I, yeah, I know he was. Yeah, me over in the corner. But yeah, so I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway, but it's a cool industry to be in, that we can all kind of share yeast, share ingredients, share resources and knowledge and everything. But yeah, so this highlights that English ale yeast. It's a little bit fruity on the nose, very soft on the palate, really nice, kind of easy finish. That yeast in particular, for an English ale yeast, is relatively clean for English ale yeast. It's not like overly fruity or anything like that, but there's enough of that character there to kind of get the point across, I suppose. But to me, it's all about the roasted malts. I don't use any caramel malt in any of my brews. If you homebrewers out there, I know homebrewers like to use caramel malt. I personally don't. I guess the reason is for light caramel malt. I find tends to mimic diacetyl. It kind of puts off some light butterscotch, light caramel flavors that you'd find in like really low concentrations of diacetyl, and then high, like really heavily caramelized, darker caramel malts. To me, tend to put off dark fruit, pruny, almost like Venus flavors that you'd get from an oxidized beer. So think about like a lot of like Belgian doubles and stuff like that. They've got that like kind of prune, raisiny character. That's oxidation. But brewing with a whole lot of really heavily caramelized malts will kind of add that same character, which to me is kind of counterintuitive. I want my beer to taste as fresh as possible for as long as possible. So also brewing without caramel malt lets you kind of highlight the roasted malts, lets you highlight hops, pale malt, whatever, Munich malt. So this one, we finished this off with some Fuggles and Goldings those are English varieties of hops, but they're grown in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, about an hour and a half southwest of Portland, pretty close to the coast. So Goldings are really herbal, really floral. Fuggle are kind of more like woody, little herbal, but primarily like woody. Every now and again from Fuggles, I'll get like a pipe tobacco quality, which is kind of cool, kind of interesting. What's up? Just porter. Just porter. We we name some of our beers, and then some of them we just kind of leave them alone. Yeah, just porter. It's just Old Bakery porter. Yeah. Yeah, I know. And you know what? I don't know. Our distributor, particularly our distributor over in Illinois, keeps telling us to name our beers, and he'll like email us some really bad suggestions, and we have to politely tell him that those suck and get back to work. But so some of our beers, sometimes we'll come up with something that just works, and it clicks and works, and we'll do it. But for the most part, most of the beers that we have are just like kind of style, and then maybe they'll incorporate like an ingredient in the name or whatever. Any question? Yeah. Yeah. Well, the artwork, we actually used a local Alton company to do the logo. We basically wanted them to kind of get inspiration from, like, 40s, 50s, maybe like early 60s era, industrial, kind of, I guess if anything, like, I don't know what it would, like, vintage modern, something like that. So far as the cans go, my wife and I designed those ourselves, in an effort to, yeah. In an effort, I mean, obviously, money is no, free. It's not free, right? So, especially in a startup with a whole bunch of capital tied up in stainless steel, we got to cut costs at any avenue. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, an event. We've got the citrus wheat is yellow, north end's green. We got the kind of navy blue porter. We got a kind of a royal sky blue Oktoberfest can. Eventually we'll kind of hopefully get like a nice little rainbow up there of beers. And we actually make those in house. Yeah, my assistant brewer Eric bought a lathe. He's kind of a little handyman himself, so he bought a lathe, and then we buy some. He's shorter than me, so he's little. He's he's yeah, he's a little guy. Oh yeah. Well, that's what we started doing for tap handles. We would go to antique stores and just buy the rolling pins, cut them in half, drill a hole in them and put a threaded insert so that they could attach to a tap handle. And then we pretty much exhausted all of our resources in the Alton area. So there are a lot of antique stores in Alton, but we exhausted that resource pretty quickly. And then we started buying basically 2-inch, I believe it's poplar, dowel rods from a company in like Cincinnati, I think. But we get them in like 4-foot segments. He chops them up and then puts them on a lathe and puts that handle on it. It's pretty cool. Oh, and the porter, it's about 5.5 to 5.7% alcohol, and then the IBUs are 35. Yeah. All right, so now we've all got the hibiscus tart. So, first of all, that's not a natural color you find in nature. No, it is, I guess. It's not a beer. You wouldn't look at this and really think, oh, this is a beer. But essentially, we start out with a beer that is not exactly, the grist isn't exactly like you'd find in citrus wheat, but the color is just about for the entirety of the mash, the whole lautering process, and then the boil, up to the very last minute of the boil. It's just another pale wheat beer, very light color. And then we hit it right at flame out with about 1 pound per barrel, so about 15 pounds of hibiscus flower, dried hibiscus flowers, and that's what turns it pink. We also throw a little bit of lemon verbena in there, I believe 5 pounds into a 15-barrel tank. So that brings this kind of lemony, floral character that really plays off the hibiscus pretty well. The hibiscus, to me, I get almost like a floral, but then like a nice raspberry character to it. Nice and tart. It's not too tart though. Yeah. Yeah. It's not. I think a lot of American sours these days are just so mouth-puckeringly sour, and they're well on their way. Yeah, they're well on their way to becoming malt vinegar by the time they bottle them up. And to me, I don't know. I have acid reflux, so if I can only have I could probably have this much of I don't know, like lawfully or whatever, and then I'd be walking around like this the rest of the night. My teeth might fall out, but so I mean, to me, this is about. I could maybe go a little bit more sour. I could dial that up a little bit more. No. Okay. Well, there we go. I like that. I'm gonna bring a document around later for you all to sign, so I can tell my distributor to shut up. Yeah. But But yeah, so I mean, this beer, it's all about the hibiscus and the acidity, and the hibiscus is it's a very acidic plant. If you guys have ever made any like hibiscus tea at home, it just has a natural acidity to it. We do kind of reinforce that with some natural lactic acid in the kettle. And then we ferment it out with that American Yale strain again. It's very, very clean, very mellow. Just kind of allows the hibiscus and the acidity to shine through. And I'm a big fan of this beer. The favorite time I ever drank it though was at a beer dinner. It was on a farm beer dinner. And it was actually one of the brewers from Perennial was there, and he brought some really nice white wine. And basically, I just was getting a little bit tipsy and started mixing them. So almost like a hibiscus tart, like wine spritzer. Oh my God, so girly, but so good, so good. Yeah, we might just start making that and bottling it and charging like double the price, you know. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey man, he had it was some good wine. I don't know where it was from. It was probably, I don't know. It was good stuff.
So all the sourness comes from the lactic acid that you add to it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's essentially like a quick sour. Some breweries will do kettle sours, and that's like an overnight process where you'll essentially like go through your mash regimen, lauter off your wort into the kettle. Most breweries will bring that wort up to a boil just to sterilize it for a little bit, and then cool it down to about 110, 115 degrees, and then hit it with some bacteria. Let it sit overnight. Typically, you'd put like a nice CO2 blanket over it to make it an anaerobic environment. Let the bacteria sour it overnight, and then once again, bring it up to a boil in the morning. Excuse me. Murray, I'm trying to talk, dude. Lesson number 1, Murray. When Dad's talking, you be quiet. Oh, boo. Yeah, you can boo me. That's fine. I'll take it. Crossing the line. But yeah, so then they'll basically like bring that wort back up to a boil to kill all the bugs, to kill all the bacteria in it. And then from there, it's just they treat it like any other beer. So they cool it down. They add, whatever brewer's yeast to it. And it's just a quick soured beer. I tend to find in young sours, which essentially is what that is, I get kind of like a Cheerios, like Honey Nut Cheerios flavor, almost kind of like honey, buttery, which I kind of equate with diacetyl. So, I don't even know that I really have any examples to talk about, but that's just kind of what I get in some young sours. And I did plenty of sour beers at home when I was home brewing, and I'd let them sit in my attic all summer at 120 degrees or whatever. But then even that wasn't enough time, and then I ended up with a bunch of, a keg of kind of Cheerios sour beer or whatever. So the lactic acid's kind of a way around that. It's just it adds the acidity, it adds kind of the lactic character to the beer without any risk of contamination, without any risk of odd off flavors or anything like that. And really, we only use enough to really kind of like accentuate the hibiscus. The hibiscus drops the pH by not a full point, but pretty close. Most beers, your starting pH will be anywhere from like 4.9 to 5.1 or 5.2 going into the fermenter. For hibiscus tart, I believe we're at about 4.1, 4.2. So pretty acidic. Yeah. 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 All right. Does anybody have any questions about this one? Thank you. Thank you. All right. Yeah? It's actually, I believe it's a region in Africa, India. There you go. Thank you for that. I would have been embarrassingly wrong. But so it's I got a coffee from Caldi's Coffee, a certified organic roast from them. That's a single source from Timor. Um, and we basically the base beer is kind of a American style red ale, very simple, very easy. Um, we wanted to kind of let the coffee shine through. Um, so we brewed up, I believe it was 20 or 25 gallons of cold brew coffee with that Timor. And then basically let it sit overnight like you would any other cold brew, and then just dosed it right into the beer. We don't do anything with the beans on the brew house. We don't add any coffee into the kettle. For us, the coffee addition is all in secondary. After the beer is completely fermented out, I think that's how you get a really nice coffee aroma and flavor without any astringency or bitterness. You know, if you were to boil coffee or the beans, it gets very bitter. So this is just, you know, kind of to me, the really good parts of coffee. I actually don't even really drink coffee. I can't do the caffeine, and then I started drinking decaf in the mornings, and I was like, I may as well just have ice water, you know. So now I just drink ice water in the mornings. But anyway, I could drink it. I would not get anything done. I would have to go back to sleep. I would know this. None of this would happen. Yeah. None of this would exist if I drank this in the morning. But yeah, so the coffee itself, you know, to me, I don't know, some like kind of, it's a lighter roast. It's kind of maybe like a little bit nougaty, milk chocolate, kind of fruity. Pairs well with the Munich malt, kind of nutty. Yeah, a little bit of like kind of, a little bit of raspberry in there. We actually did add a little bit of raspberry into the beer as well. Forgot about that. It was only a little bit.